Post-Aristotle, Ancient Philosophy, Part 3, Cynicism. Professor Michael Botwin, Department of Psychology, California State University, Fresno. Our next movement is Cynicism, and Cynicism was founded by Aristotle, who has the profound philosophical statement, "A horse I can see, but horsehood I cannot see." In other words, I can look at a horse, I can touch a horse, I can smell a horse. I've been around some smelly horses. But I can't understand what it's like to be inside of the head of a horse, to understand things as a horse does. You can take that analogy and extend it to people. I can see you, I can talk to you, I can try to get into your head, but can I really understand how you see the world compared to how I see the world? It's an interesting question, and one that continues to scientifically and philosophically baffle us. Aristotle starts the cynical movement, and he has a back to nature perspective. And he believes that one should live life free from social conventions, society wants, passions. He believes all of these things just complicate life. If you own possessions, they can be taken away. They can disappear. All kinds of things can happen. So one should free themselves of possessions, and he believed that would lead you to have the best life. One of his followers, Diogenes, was a more extreme example of that. Now, cynics come from canine, and Diogenes represents the cynical view. He lived a primitive dog-like existence. And Diogenes especially believed that virtue was liberation from the desire of the want for material things. We live in a highly materialistic modern culture, and many people now are looking at this and saying, do I need all of this stuff? The more things, the more work I have to do to keep track of them. In Fresno, where our houses are built on slabs and we don't have basements, there is a major market niche for storage units. So if you have too much stuff for your house, you rent some space to keep your stuff that you don't want to get rid of. And Diogenes says that you need to free yourself from their material goods because you're really liberating yourself. He lived in a barrel on the beach in relatively simple rags. Now, Diogenes had his philosophy tested in a very interesting way. Aristotle's student, Alexander the Great, comes along, and Alexander had an interesting approach to several different philosophical questions. In the case of Diogenes, he stands in front of Diogenes, and as the conqueror of the then known world, Alexander says to Diogenes, I can give you anything. You name it, you can have it. Diogenes replied with pretty much what was no thanks, and if you want to do something for me, you can get out of my light. You're kind of casting a shadow on me. So you have there the extreme freedom from material things with Diogenes. I oftentimes look at the Cynics as kind of the hippies of their day. For many of the things that they believed in philosophically. Here's Diogenes' statue with a dog. The Cynics encouraged social disengagement. The more you were engaged in society, the more you were worried about where everyone was in the social order, the more grief it brought upon you. And the Cynics attacked society for being for hypocrisy, for greed, for envy, for hatred, and they believed a lot of this was due to the pursuit of material goods. Now, what did they want? And the Cynics believed that happiness was obtained by living in accord with nature. And that if you lived a natural life, you would be leading a good life. And by taking what nature offered, you're freeing yourself from the material contrivances of society. They didn't believe in citizenship or belonging to a government. They deemed themselves as citizens of the world, not any nation. In other words, they wanted what was best for the world, not for their country. And I thought that a lot of the troubles that individuals got into was because of one country or city-state disagreeing with another one. They believed in free love, and they thought it was foolish to live by social conventions, sacrifice for others, or to be patriotic. Because all of this was constantly changing. And remember, this is a philosophy bred of the changing world. You have the fall of the Greek city-states and the rise of Alexander the Great and his empire before the Romans. So the Cynics, again, it's kind of a downer time in Greece. And they may have been rich and powerful at one point in time, but they've had everything taken away. In warfare, during ancient times, if you lost the war, most likely you were either killed or enslaved, and you lost your freedom. And they just thought that it was terribly foolish to live by rules of society, be patriotic, or to sacrifice for other people, because that's always going to cost you and cause you some kind of problems down the line. So those are our Cynics. Our next philosophical movement is going to be the Epicureans. And they also have a name that doesn't fit the current use of the term Epicurean. But you'll see that in our next installment of the history of psychology. Bye now. This has been a We Have Couches video production. Copyright 2020. Professor Michael Botwin, all rights reserved.